Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and we're here today with special guest, Tess Whitehurst, who's here to share with us her new book, The Self-Love Superpower, The Magical Art of Approving of Yourself, No Matter What. So Tess is an intuitive counselor, energy worker, feng shui consultant, and speaker. She has appeared on the Bravo's TV show Flipped Out, and her writings have been featured in places like Writer's Digest, Llewellyn's Annuals, and Spirit and Destiny magazine. So let's welcome to the show, Tess Whitehurst.
Thank you, Marianne. I'm delighted to be here.
What an honor it is to have you here and to talk about your new book. What inspired you to write this?
Oh, that's a great question. I feel like self-love is just such a key, just an ongoing key for those of us on the spiritual path, a portal into greater joy, greater empowerment, just waking up in the morning and feeling excited and happy to be who you are. It's so inherent. So I felt like it would be just a gift to give myself, but also to offer to everyone, because I want everyone to love themselves more. And I also want to love myself more and more. The thing about love is that love is infinite. So you can continually deepen your love and approval of yourself. And the more you do, the better you feel. So I guess that's the way I would say that I was inspired to write this book.
Well, we hear self-love all the time. So what does that really mean?
Yeah, so I think there is a lot of confusion about self-love. It is not the same as self-esteem. Self-esteem is different than self-love and self-compassion, because esteem, and it's great too. I don't mean to minimize self-esteem, but like the word esteem means you have a high opinion of, where love and compassion are different than that. If you love someone, it's different than having esteem for them. They may coincide. But with self-love, it is that same quality as if you think about your cat or your dog or your child or your partner or your parent or someone who it's really easy for you to love. It's not, you don't love them because they're so great at everything, because they always know just what to say, and they succeed all the time, and they never forget things. It's not why you love them. Love is not that. So self-love is really cultivating more and more this feeling of warmth, kindness, relaxation, self-forgiveness, as you move through your life experience. It's like, I'm delighted at this stage in my life that when I look in the mirror, I do feel that feeling of, oh, there you are. Oh, not so much like, it waxes and wanes, but I remember a time when it was just like, oh, there you are. Look at all these issues, these problems you have that you have to fix. And now it's like, oh, you're just doing your best. You're going through life. And it cannot be overstated how wonderful that is to have yourself, to look in the mirror, to look at your body, to place your hands on your heart and your belly and just continually offer yourself support. It's priceless.
So when we talk about self-love, I know so many people have this chronic way of berating themselves, of being in this negative thought process. So how do they make that leap to even being kind to themselves and loving to themselves?
So it's a shift. I think it's so interesting now that we know about neuroplasticity, because we can actually have a concept of what is happening as we change those habits. But one of the things I talk about in the book is that when you are listening to the voice in your head, so let's say the voice, I tell a story in the book about a time when I was around 20 years old, when I was so in my head and I was just insulting myself over and over and over, just really this spiral of negative self-talk. And then I would try to argue with myself in my mind. Like, no, see, no, look, this just try to like meet that inner critic on its own level. And this is something that when we notice ourselves doing that, we can just completely elevate ourselves out of the argument. So it's not about convincing yourself, treating the inner critic as someone you want to have a lively debate with. It's not that. It's okay, there's all that self-talk, there's all of that criticism that is making my stomach tie up in knots, making me feel uncomfortable, like talking about my degree of worth. That's not me. That's a voice in my head. So one of the things I love to do, I still notice, I mean, I feel like I notice this more with worry now than so much at this stage of my life with self-love, but we can just feel this, like notice this happening, notice this is the voice in our head, and then connect with, you might call it spirit, you might call it the higher self, you might call it silence or space, you might call it a quality of surrender, but I like to think of it in a way of as elevating. So there's a level of discord, there's a level of argument, of inner spiraling into negativity, and then you lift yourself up and out of it, and it could even continue. This is a way to help to shift, I think, the neuroplasticity, shift the habit, shift the momentum. It's okay if it continues even. There's the voice. I think about, I really like Michael Singer talks about this in the Untethered Soul and in the Surrender Experiment, that he really, I think, does a great job of kind of explaining this dynamic of there's a voice in your head that narrates things, but that isn't you. So the minute you remember that's not you, it's like you get to connect with who you really are, which is the consciousness in which all of that arises.
I think so many people get stuck by that ego voice that they hear, like, you're better than everyone. You're worse than this. You should be thinner than people, that are Instagram, or maybe you
Yeah,
need different clothes or whatever. There's always something that we're not living
totally.
up to these expectations.
Yeah. And, humans are social creatures and we are aware of status. Like these are things about being the creature, the animal that we are. So we will compare. We'll judge. But so I think it is so helpful. It's just such a key to always remember. It's not about stopping the inner monologue. It's about removing identification with it so you're not caught up in it. And that place I have found, you have probably found when you have had this experience, when you elevate yourself or take yourself out of the argument, let it keep going on if it wants to, but remembering it's not you, there is a quality of love there. And this is a kind of a way of thinking of my direct experience to spirituality, where it's not like blind faith. It's like, I feel that. I feel in that space when I identify with infinity. I feel love. I feel approval. I feel infinite kindness, patience, inspiration, compassion. Sometimes it's more accessible to than others, but on this spiritual path, this is our practice, is again and again remembering to identify with that space consciousness. And then I find that it flows in to all of the details of my life. It's like when you identify with that consciousness, the openness, the silence, the space, then more blessings flow in. It just feels like doors of possibility open, pleasure, mindfulness, connection. It's like you feel safe enough to open your heart. So then you feel like you could trust people. So then you feel like you can connect deeply with people. I mean, it's like a big chain reaction of blessings.
So, what are some ways that we can start being kind to ourselves? Some like little baby steps we can take?
So I really love the work of Dr. Kristen Neff. She wrote Self-Compassion, The Proven Power of Being Kind to Yourself. And I talk about that in my book, The Self-Love Superpower. I like how this is science. I love when science and spirituality merge, but I love how she's actually demonstrated that this works, this mindfulness practice of self-compassion, which is to like if you notice that you're rushing around. I mean, this is like just such a mild form of suffering, right? But if you feel disconnected, just to give an example that's mild, because it doesn't have to be severe. But let's say you feel disconnected from yourself, from your life, because you're rushing around, you're trying to get ahead of everything, you feel overwhelmed. You can notice this. You can stop, take a breath, and this is a part of the mindfulness practice. Place one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly, or both hands on your heart, both hands on your belly, whatever feels best to you. Take a breath, send yourself love. So this is also, she talks about in the book, proven to increase the oxytocin, which is that hormone that we feel when we cuddle, that love hormone, the warm fuzzies. So send yourself love. And in her affirmation, which you can change or just have your own variation of, is this is a moment of suffering. So you acknowledge it. You kind of like acknowledge, I'm suffering. I'm rushing around. I feel overwhelmed. Suffering is a part of life. So we're remembering this is everybody. This is not just me. This is everybody has this. I think this is one of the things with Instagram and Facebook too. It's like we get this idea, oh, see, everyone else is always happy and everything works out for them all the time. And they're never feeling disconnected. They're never having negative self-talk. It's just not true. Everyone does. So suffering is a part of life. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion I need. So kindness, just kindness. What does that mean to you? Compassion. Having that sense of unconditional positive regard for yourself. And at first, it might feel silly. I mean, I have been doing stuff like this. I've been interested in spirituality and spiritual practices since high school. So this does not feel silly to me. You probably doesn't feel silly to you either. But I can imagine that there are people for whom it feels silly. Hey, just try it. Let it be an experiment. This is how I feel about spiritual work. Try it out, see what happens. Why not? You can always throw it out later, but it does. I have had the experience. Many people have had the experience. Things like this bring you peace. So that's valuable. It's worth it. It's worth it to maybe feel silly for a minute or to move out of your comfort zone as far as how you speak to yourself. But over time, I mean, there's immediate relief that comes from choosing to have kindness for yourself in the moment. But there's also over time, you get in the habit of it and things become, you feel easier about things because often, the way we think about things, the way we talk to ourselves about things is the worst part of it. The actual experience of life is just what it is. But our feelings toward ourselves, the ways that we beat ourselves up or the labels we put on ourselves, that's often the most uncomfortable part of our experience. So to really proactively choose to be kind to yourself, to have unconditional positive regard for yourself is a huge deal. And when I was just saying that, I got the sense that some people in the audience might be thinking, well, if I'm kind to myself all the time, then I'll never improve. And this is absolutely untrue. It's the opposite is true, actually. I have had the experience of teaching children for many years. Before I was an author, I taught dance and gymnastics to children. And I mean, it was just so obvious that when you are positive, when you tell children how great they're doing, it's so much easier to help encourage them to learn. than if you're just, telling them all the things they're doing wrong. It's like that is just discouraging. It's the same with us. It's the same with the way we treat ourselves. If we can be like, hey, I see you, you're trying hard, I love you, look in the mirror and have this kind of feeling towards yourself, it just makes everything easier.
I like that you have action steps within your book. And one I think that really stuck with me is making a compliment and criticism audit. So, why would our listeners do that?
Okay, so the compliment and criticism audit, because so we are really, I think it is helpful to admit to ourselves that we are social creatures and that when we are complimented or criticized by other people, we take it to heart. We often really do take it to heart. So this action step in the book is to brainstorm the compliments that have stood out to you in your childhood and also the criticisms that have had a big effect on you. So if you then, once you assess this, you can just look and see like, what effects have these things had on my self-worth, my self-esteem, my beliefs about myself, my beliefs about how deserving I am. And then the next part is to list compliments that you would like to receive that would really nourish you in a deep way. And part of this too, this audit is to look at compliments and criticisms in general, like the compliments and criticisms that we give other people can have such a big effect too. So to notice that. And so I really like now I like to when I give compliments, I like to give compliments that transcend the surface level. I mean, if I just meet someone and I don't know them very well, maybe I'll compliment their shirt or something like that, or their hair. But when someone is my friend, my loved one, I really want to speak to what I truly value about them, what I notice, what I see, and why that matters to me. I think that in general, having a relationship with how we compliment, and then, I mean, even criticize, I think if we need to give constructive, loving criticism, that would be something to look at too. But when we become conscious of the ways that compliments and criticisms have affected us, then we can lovingly shift those. We can look at them through new eyes. We can give ourselves kindness and compassion for the negative ways that those have affected us. We can even look at compliments, like maybe compliments that we've gotten have been either backhanded or maybe they have been something that focused on a value system that we don't really want to buy into. Like I know, for example, my a certain family member of mine has been very, very focused on appearance and weight and degree of fitness. And that was something that I had to consciously shift. Like that didn't come from me. I don't choose that. I don't want that to be something on which I base my value. Maybe I could value my health, but to base my value on my appearance and degree of fitness is not something that feels authentic to me. So it's really a way of bringing the unconscious, previously unconscious effects of compliments and criticisms into your conscious awareness so that you can choose how you want to continue to relate to those things.
Well, thank you for taking the time to go through that. And one of the things that you also talk about in your book is energetic self-care. And I think that that was such an important piece. And I'd love for you to explain that for our listeners.
Yeah, so this is a practice, energetic self-care, that I have done for many years, engaged in for many years. And if you're a spiritual person, someone interested in metaphysics, I just can't recommend it enough. This is so important for those of us who are attuned to the subtle realm. Now, let me just say before I talk about what it is, that if you are listening to this show, you almost certainly are attuned to the subtle realm. Otherwise, it would not be something that would appeal to you. This is those of us who love to meditate, to spend time in nature, to go into a spiritual bookstore, metaphysical bookstore, and wander around. These are people who are attuned to the subtle realm. Okay, so this is almost certainly you. So for those of us who are attuned to the subtle realm, it's important for us to take care of our energy field. An interesting thing too is that when you do this daily, then it helps you attune even more to the subtle realm. So to your intuition, to energy, the way energy moves around your body, to just kind of align with spirit. So energetic self-care for me, this is a part of my daily meditation. So as a part of my daily meditation, Personally, I like to work with angels. I ask Archangel Michael and Archangel Raphael to vacuum my energy field of any and all stuck or challenging energies and to fill and surround me with golden white light in which only love remains, through which only love may enter. So you might work with angels, you might just work with the divine, you might have another kind of way you like to speak to spirit in order to invoke this sort of energetic healing and protection. So I shield, and then I like to connect my personal energy field. So if I'm imagining my body as light, this is kind of how I conceptualize and feel energy. I imagine my body as light. I imagine my aura also as light. So like a sphere of light around my body. And then I like to imagine connecting my root chakra. So that's like the tailbone area, the area that anchors into the earth when you sit straight, when you sit with your spine straight. So my root chakra, connecting that with a pillar of light. I imagine sending a pillar of light straight down into the earth, into the core of the earth, which I conceptualize as golden white light. And then anchor in. So it's like my roots are drinking in that light and pulling it up. So it just naturally moves up into my energy field. And then I imagine cleansing each chakra, or cleansing and activating each chakra with that earth light. So it enters the root chakra, the sacral chakra at the belly, the solar plexus chakra above the belly button, the heart chakra at the center of the heart, the center of the chest, the throat chakra, third eye chakra at the center of the forehead, and crown chakra at the top of the head. And then I imagine or, send a pillar or trunk of light straight up from my head up into what I conceptualize as the infinite central sun. And then so it's like I'm plugging in my branches or my pillar of light to that infinite light. And then that naturally comes down, goes through each of the chakras in the other order. And then again, it's just, I feel the sense of being surrounded in this sphere of light. So once you do something like this every day, where you take care of your energy field and feel yourself, like set the intention, there's a sphere of light around me. In this sphere, only love remains. Through this sphere, only love may enter. It has such an effect on your daily experience, but also as part of your daily meditation, once you do something like this, and it can go quick. Once you get the hang of it, you can do it quickly. Then it's a nice time then to set intentions for your day or for your life, because now you have a kind of container. So here you are in this container of light, and you can bring to mind the things that you really will bring you joy to manifest, the qualities you want to experience in your career, in your relationship, the degree of abundance you want to attract, the things you want to attract into your life, and feeling gratitude for them as if they're already present. You can also feel gratitude for the things that are already present. You can invoke ancestors, any sort of spirit beings on the other side that you like to work with. It's just a nice kind of way to create a circle of light around yourself so that you can proceed with all the rest of your daily spiritual work. And this practice is just so anchoring. It helps you really get your head straight. It helps you know what your intentions are, why you're doing what you're doing, and what you want to attract. It helps you steer your course.
In your book, you talk about shining the light on our shadow. Why would we do that, and what's the benefit?
So this is such a big question. The shadow. So Carl Jung coined this term. Many of your listeners, I'm sure, are familiar with it. The shadow, we could talk about the shadow as the parts of ourselves that we don't want to admit or claim or look at. And the reason why this is so helpful for self-love is because it gets to that heart of when we do feel like our self-approval should be conditional. It goes into, no, you know what? I know that you have these aspects, and more learning. This is shining light on the shadows, more and more acknowledging, oh, this is something I'm ashamed of. This is someone I don't want to be. This is someone I'm afraid of being. These are qualities I just really don't want to admit. The more we can lovingly shine light on them, the more we can bring our power back. It's just another way to have compassion. It's like, we know that our partner, our any loved one, is not perfect. We know this. And we don't need them to be perfect in order to love them completely. It's like, we know they have secrets that they wouldn't want to share with anybody. It's not like we would disown them. We love them anyway. So letting ourselves be imperfect and letting the love encompass all of it. But it's also fun to look at your shadow because it can be like, sometimes it can be uncomfortable. Sometimes it can be fun though, because you can be like, wow, these are things that consistently bother me. Like if there's something that consistently annoys you in the external world, a type of, I don't know, behavior that someone else exhibits, or maybe there is a particular famous person that drives you crazy and you don't know why. Like when you look at these kinds of things, like, I don't know why that just drives me crazy. It's often because there's an unexamined piece of yourself. So it's something about you that you don't like. And so you kind of project that dislike onto whoever this is that drives you crazy. Sometimes it's jealousy. This is another way that it's fun. If this is the fun shadow exercise any of your listeners can do right this minute. If there's someone you don't know why, but you just feel so jealous of them, you know what? How about this? If you make a list, sit down, make a list, anyone you can think of who you're jealous of. And then it's so fascinating to look and see, do these people have anything in common? These, however many, maybe there's 3, maybe there's 2, maybe there's 7. Does this list of people have anything in common? And then if you see some commonalities there, that is a sure sign that this is something that you want. Often, if it's jealousy, like, because I talked about in the book that I did this exercise. I think it's Julia Cameron in The Artist Way I got the idea from. But I did this exercise, and it appeared that the people on my list, maybe there were 5 of them ish, 4 or 5, I don't know. It appeared that they didn't have much in common at all. But then when I looked, I realized they all were video bloggers. All of them had YouTube channels where they were video bloggers. And I was like, oh, I want a YouTube channel. I would like to do videos on YouTube. I didn't even realize, but yes, that is something I want. So this is an example of how shadow work can be fun, because you are looking into the mystery of you and uncovering more of who you are.
What would you like readers and listeners to take away from your book?
Well, certainly I would like for them to learn to love themselves, to get better and better at it, which is obvious because of the title. But I think another kind of message that I would like them to come away with is that it's ongoing and it's imperfect. It's just not like the whole process of learning to love yourself itself can be a vehicle for greater self-compassion as you do it imperfectly and learn as you go and allow mistakes, allow what seems to be backtracking, allow sitting down to meditate and your mind just will not quiet down, but that's okay. You just sit down again tomorrow and then maybe your mind wanders again and then you sit down again tomorrow. It's like that kind of quality of patience with yourself, of patience with the process of letting life be an imperfect spiral. Life, spirituality, self-love, self-approval, self-compassion. We're just showing up in each moment, doing our best.
Tess, where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community?
Oh, thank you for asking. Well, I would love for them to check out my website, tesswhitehurst.com. And there I have lots of free resources, free guided meditations, inspiration, rituals. And also at the bottom of each blog post, you can sign up for my newsletter there at tesswhitehurst.com.
Well, Tess, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
It was truly my pleasure. Thank you so much, Marianne.
Well, thank you, Tess. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, The Self-Love Superpower, The Magical Art of Approving of Yourself, No Matter What. The Self-Love Superpower is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and everywhere books are sold. And remember to support our indie bookstores. If you don't see it on the shelf, just ask for them to order it. Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick moment. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after this message. I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.